Hi everyone, Amanda here from Simple Life of a Frugal Wife, and today in this video we are going to talk about how you can homestead no matter where you live. Now if you haven't, please subscribe by pushing the button below, and let's get into it. Now, my husband and I moved to our homestead about a year and a half ago, and before that we lived very close to neighbors in a small town on a 1/11th of an acre. So we didn't have a whole lot of room to do much. However, with homesteading, there were little ways that I could become more self-sufficient, even though I only lived on 1/11th of an acre. And the truth of the matter is, even if you live in an apartment, there are always things that you can do. Now, you're not going to get a cow if you live in an apartment or on 1/11th of an acre, but there are other ways that you can become more self-reliant and more self-sufficient no matter where you lay your head down. So, the first thing you can do is you can learn to cook from scratch. Now, I always have people say to me, I don't know how to cook. My spouse does all the cooking. I never learned how to cook. Well, the truth of the matter is you can learn if you really want to. And I can say this because I know, because I was one of those people. When I left home, in my teens, I left without knowing how to do anything. I even wrote an article on Scary Mommy about how I did not know how to adult. I didn't have basic adulting skills. And I can leave that link below for you so you can see it for yourself. But I just didn't know how to do things, and I didn't know how to cook. But we live in such an amazing, amazing age where there is so much information right at our fingertips. And so I started reading tutorials online. I started looking up on YouTube. I started reading books, homesteading books and recipe books. And that is how I learned to do a lot of my stuff. And now I can do canning and gardening and cooking and many other things. All because mostly the internet and the books I read. So the truth of the matter is, if you are someone who feels like it's too late, you didn't learn growing up, guess what? You can still learn. Just start Googling, start small. Even the basics of how to boil an egg, all that information is out there, and it can get you going. So learn how to cook from scratch, and you will be on your way to becoming more self-sufficient. The other thing is to start a garden. Starting a garden, you can do that no matter where you live again. If you live in an apartment and you don't have any property, you can do container gardening by growing vegetables in, big pots, putting it on your balcony. If you live on a small lot, you can have a small garden. It's amazing how many vegetables some of those plants will produce. So if you can only have a few vegetable plants, you can actually get quite a few vegetables depending on what you pick. So grow your food. It is such an awesome feeling going out to the backyard and picking out some fresh lettuce for your salad that night. Last year was our first main full garden year, and because it took me quite a long time to figure out how to do it, and it was just one of the best feelings in the world. We already have our seeds starting, and I cannot wait to do round 2. You can also start canning to become more self-sufficient. And if you have grown enough in your garden, you can use some of that, but you don't need that to do canning. You can get vegetables from a farmer's market. We don't grow our own berries. We leave that to the experts in the area. And so we always go to berry farms, and we will pick a bunch of strawberries or blueberries, and then I will can the berries into jam, and we will have jam for the whole year. Now, if you need canning supplies, definitely check out our thrift stores because there's always lots of those lying around, and you can get them from a much cheaper price. So start canning. The next thing is to use a clothesline. Dryers are huge energy hogs, and if you can stop using that, that's going to save you on your energy bill, and the sun is great for sanitizing and bleaching your clothes. We actually don't use a dryer here. We just use the clothesline, and while I will admit I'm always behind in laundry, I love the way the clothes smell when they come down from the line out in the sun. The next thing you can do is raise meat birds or rabbits. Now this can be possible even in the city. I know many people in the cities who will raise rabbits for meat. Because of their small size, they are able to do that on a small property. So you can, you'll have to check what your community regulations are, especially for meat birds, but that may be a possibility. And the next thing, along with the meat birds and the meat rabbits, are laying hens. So a lot of communities these days allow people to have a small number of chickens on their property. You can't usually have a rooster because the neighbors will not be so happy, but you can have, 4 chickens and they can provide you with eggs. We only have 5 chickens, and we find that gives us enough eggs for our family and to even sell a few. So definitely look into your community regulations. Now for me, in where we lived before, we weren't allowed chickens, so unfortunately there are a lot of communities who still aren't quite on board with it, but there are quite a few out there. So just be sure to check and see what your community allows. You can also become a beekeeper. Again, this is another thing you will have to check with your community. There is a certain amount of meters that I think that the bee hive needs to be away from a residence or a building. But if you have, a larger lot in the city or in town, you may be able to keep bees and harvest your own honey. And let's be honest, honey is amazing. You can also tap your trees. We tapped our trees for the first time this year. We had 6 trees to tap, so not too many, but it was actually really exciting, and I was actually surprised at how much the trees provided for us in the way of sap. And now we have a bunch of maple syrup in our fridge. So even if you have 1 tree, it's also just a great experience. It's so exciting. If you have kids, it's awesome for them to see, and it just feels good, putting a hole in a tree and getting sweet maple syrup from it. So tap your trees. You can also experiment in fermentation. So fermentation, fermented foods are really, really good for the gut, and you don't need to live on property to make fermented food. I make sauerkraut, kimchi, sourdough. What's another thing I make? Water kefir. I've made kombucha. I've made milk kefir. There's just so many options, and it's just so good for you. So definitely experiment with fermenting food. And the last one I'm going to leave with you is making your own products, like cleaning products or beauty products. You can make your own soaps, you can make your own cleaning supplies, and you can do that again anywhere you live. I have a great soap making tutorial on my blog, and I will leave the link below if that's something you want to try. Some people tend to be scared to make soap because of the lye factor. I will tell you, the first time it is a little scary, but once you get past that, you realize as long as you're safe and take the necessary precautions, you'll be just fine. So those are a bunch of ways that you can homestead no matter where you live. I don't think that we should allow our dreams to not come true if we don't live where we feel is the only place that it can come true. Yes, true, your dream may not be the exact image you have in your head, but the great thing is that you can do things no matter where you live, no matter how small the property, how small your house. You can be a homesteader. Being a homesteader really means just learning to be more self-reliant and self-sufficient and doing more for yourself, and just being able to be capable of doing that stuff. And I'll tell you that the more you learn to do, the better, the easier it becomes to learn more. And it just feels really good to be able to accomplish those things and to be capable of those things. For me, I have been someone in my life who, I've come from where I felt like I wasn't really capable of doing a lot, and I used to be really, really hard on myself. But as the older I get and the more willing I become to try new things, I have since discovered that as long as you have the drive, as long as you have the determination, as long as you're okay and you're willing to get up after you fail and learn from those mistakes, then you're going to be just fine and you're going to learn new things. The most recent thing I learned was to use some power tools. I had my husband teach me how to use a skill saw and a drill, and while some women are awesome with those and knew how to use them long before my age at 35, this was new for me, and it was exciting just to be able to learn how to use them. So you're never too old to learn. It doesn't matter where you live, you can homestead as long as you're determined to learn and to keep at it. So those are ways you can homestead no matter where you live. I hope you'll tune into next video.